But we begin this hour with the latest on Venezuela after its president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife were captured in a U.S. operation yesterday. Later today, House Democrats plan to hold an emergency virtual caucus meeting on the administration's actions in Venezuela. This comes as congressional Democrats and Republicans have had largely opposing reactions to the operation, which the Congress did not approve. At his news conference yesterday, President Trump made this stunning claim about Venezuela's future.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
In an interview with Vanity Fair released last month, Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, conceded that attacking targets on Venezuela's mainland would force Trump to get congressional approval. Quote, if he were to authorize some activity on land, then it's war, then Congress. Here's how President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio justified keeping Congress in the dark about its plans, informing top leaders only after the operation was underway.
We call members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. It's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result.
Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Joaquin Castro of Texas. He serves on both the House Foreign Affairs and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, thank you very much for coming to the weekend. I have so many questions that we don't have enough time, but how is it possible that the President of the United States was able to do this and not at least get in touch with the Gang of Eight? And more importantly, what are you going to do about it? You are a member of Congress, albeit in the minority, but what can you do now that this action has been taken?
Well, we actually took action before the holiday break. I, along with Jim McGovern and Thomas Massie, led an effort, a resolution that was voted on by the whole House. So it was a bipartisan resolution to stop the Trump administration from doing exactly this. We lost that vote by 2 votes. And so I expect that we will reintroduce that resolution this coming week, and others will introduce similar resolutions. And I hope that given everything that's happened now, that the vote will look different this time. But I also want to say that when the administration came to brief us in December, that week before we left, I directly asked Secretary of State Rubio whether the administration would come to Congress and basically ask permission of Congress, which is consistent with the Constitution and the War Powers Act, ask permission for land strikes or land invasion. And he said, we will come to Congress for anything that requires an AUMF, an authorization for use of military force. He also said at the time, and this is December 18th, 17th, 18th, somewhere around there, that they had no plans that they had been making for a land invasion at that point. So obviously that was not the case. And so I hope that those who voted no or who voted against our resolution now will learn their lesson and will support it.
Congressman, if I could just follow up, because I'm sure there are a lot of people watching who are probably thinking this question. Are we not past the time of strongly worded letters and resolutions, especially given what you just talked about last month? They came up and testified to you that, oh, if we do something, we're going to come to Congress to get authorization. Please explain how a strongly worded resolution is going to change anything.
Well, I mean, I think we're using a resolution here. Sometimes you use a resolution to congratulate people on something, retirement, for example. When I say resolution here, this has the power of law. So it would actually, that vote, if we had been successful in the House and then it would have had to gone over to the Senate, we would have actually been able to stop them from doing this without congressional approval.
But Congressman, I'm wondering, passing this resolution, well, first of all, does it need to be updated in any way? Because the administration hasn't used the word U.S. occupation, but it certainly seems like in order to accomplish their objectives, this is essentially going to be a U.S. occupation in Venezuela. So how do you, and are you in favor of preventing U.S. troops from being sent to Venezuela? And essentially, how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube here now that we have ousted Maduro?
Yeah, I mean, I think like most of the country, I was stunned when President Trump stood up in that press conference yesterday and said that the United States is going to run and basically occupy Venezuela. It was as if the president didn't learn any of the lessons of the wars in Iraq or Afghanistan. He was using the language of forever war and also the language of really of colonialism and of decades past. And so Americans don't want war in Venezuela. They don't want to spend billions and billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars in the long run, in running Venezuela from Washington, D.C., especially when people's grocery prices are going up, rent is going up, the cost of childcare is going up, health care is going up because Republicans let these subsidies lapse. And so, no, I don't support it, and the American people don't support it, and that's why we're going to take action this coming week.
Congressman, one of the questions I think that probably all of us at this table have, a lot of people that are watching this show have, is who are we as the United States to be getting rid of other countries' leaders unilaterally? Who, even though we think they are legitimate, even though, we think them to be corrupt, who are we to then decide who the next leader should be? I think, especially all of us that grew up around the Iraq War and watching that happen, and the folks before us that look at, countries like Vietnam and all the other interventions we've done across the world, who are we as the United States to be doing that? And, I throw in with the rest of both of my colleagues is Congress has, if Congress is going to say we are a co-equal branch of government, then they actually have to act like it, right? And so what are you and your Democratic colleagues doing to convince your Republican colleagues that this can't stand?
I mean, those are all great questions. First, no, you're right. Look, the world after World War II tried to put in place different rules of the road, so to speak, to try to prevent this kind of action. One country with a stronger military basically going in and taking out the leader of another country. And then we know how the story often turns out, which is chaos, a lot of money wasted, and so forth. And so I agree, particularly when you look at the history of Latin America. The United States has an ugly history of supporting right-wing dictators who abuse their people. Now, Maduro was not a good guy. The election results from the last presidential election were suspicious and so forth. But if it was a matter of taking out bad guys around the world who were leading countries, you'd be looking suspiciously at half the world and their leaders. And so Donald Trump is acting in a very brazen way that in many ways is taking us back to decades past when it comes to the United States and its relationship with Latin America and the world.